Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story,
We break it
we examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in.
What if the pursuit of non-attachment isn't a path to spiritual freedom, but the most sophisticated form of consumer control ever designed?
Okay, that question right there, that's our starting point for this deep dive.
Exactly. We're looking at this popular version of non-attachment, the kind you see all over social media in those wellness bestsellers.
Right, and we're not treating it as some kind of ancient wisdom. Not initially, anyway.
No.
Yeah.
We're treating it as a system, like a cognitive architecture almost, something designed maybe to manage how people think and behave.
Our mission here is really intellectual forensics. We're setting the scope by looking at this whole thing with a really critical, skeptical eye.
Yeah, asking what actually happens when you take these big, profound spiritual ideas, concepts that have deep ethical, cultural, philosophical roots.
And you strip all that away.
Yeah.
You rip them out of context.
And then repackage them as these quick transactional techniques, almost like life hacks.
And that transactional piece is key, isn't it? When you apply that kind of forensic approach, you see pretty quickly that these frameworks really only work as control mechanisms when they become transactional.
Right. It boils down to this simple formula. If you perform some specific internal state change, let's call it X.
Like achieving non-attachment.
Exactly. Then you're basically guaranteed some kind of external reward, Y, material stuff, emotional payoff, whatever.
So, okay, where do we even start with this? You needed to pinpoint a really visible, high-impact example of this system in action.
And our sources, well, they immediately pointed towards this really potent blended ideology, kind of spiritual mashup.
You see it exemplified really clearly in viral content like the non-attachment discourse that's just huge on platforms like YouTube.
Yeah, this isn't some fringe thing. We're talking about content reaching hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. It's become almost spiritual mainstream for a lot of people.
And when you start digging into the sources, what's really striking is how quickly this architecture, it just dissolves into this weird Frankenstein's monster.
That's a good way to put it. It's messy, right? It pulls from different places.
Totally. You get a little nod towards Buddhist non-attachment, maybe just the surface level stuff. But then there's this huge reliance on the mechanics of the law of attraction, manifesting things.
Right. And then sprinkled on top, just enough sort of misinterpreted Stoic acceptance to give it a bit of intellectual weight.
Exactly. It's banking entirely on the borrowed seriousness, the gravitas, of three really major complex philosophical traditions.
To sell this one slick, emotionally satisfying product.
It's almost like taking a really complex, beautifully crafted 18th century clock, something ethically rigorous in its design, and just stripping out all the important bits, the balance wheel, the gears that actually keep time.
And selling the empty case as this fashionable accessory that doesn't actually do anything the original was designed for.
Precisely. It looks the part, but the core function is gone. Or worse, repurposed.
Okay, so let's unpack that casing then, because this is where we get into phase one. Mapping the structural architecture, we need to lay out the pillars holding this belief system up.
And we need to categorize them by how critical they are, how vulnerable the system is if you question them. Critical, high, medium vulnerabilities.
Right. Let's start at the foundation, the critical axioms. These are the absolute bedrock assumptions.
The things you just have to accept for the rest of it to make any sense. If the consumer doubts these, the whole system just kind of implodes.
And the core of this problem-solution setup seems to rest on two key statements. They presented almost like cosmic laws, totally indisputable.
What are they?
First, attachment equals suffering. Simple as that. And second, the ego creates attachment.
Okay, so you, the person engaging with this, you're essentially told to internalize this idea.
Yeah.
That your natural, very human ability to care to invest emotion, hope, effort into people, into outcomes, into things you value.
That is the root cause of all your pain.
That's a really powerful reframe, isn't it? Quite brilliant in a manipulative way.
It is. It basically pathologizes the fundamental act of being a connected human being.
But once that foundation is set, once you accept, okay, my love, my care, my investment, that's actually the source of my problems.
Then the system can smoothly introduce the next level, the high GH conclusions.
Right. These are the emotional hooks. This is where the promises come in, the manifestation claims. The transactional nature becomes super explicit here.
And the payoff they promise is huge. And it's almost always external.
What kind of claims are we talking about?
Things like letting go makes the universe provide, or non-attachment attracts people, like it makes you more desirable.
Okay, so that's the core spiritual bargain right there. You're
Mhm.
trading the anxiety you feel about trying to control things
Yeah.
for this promise that some infallible cosmic force will manage things for you and give you what you want if you just stop caring so much.
It's a powerful lure, which feeds directly into the other high GH vulnerability category, the immediate emotional triggers.
What does this system sell better than almost anything else?
Relief, instant relief from anxiety. Think about it, the fear of external forces you can't control.
Like a bad job market or a toxic relationship or just financial insecurity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That stuff is debilitating for people. This ideology offers a kind of spiritual bypass.
It claims you can achieve total internal control over how you feel, even if your external life is still a mess, just change your inner state.
And then, sitting above those hooks, we find the media mechanisms. These are the actual techniques, the behavioral controls, the homework, basically.
The what to do.
Right. Things like being told to just choose happiness, which kind of ignores biology, social factors, everything.
Or instructions like trace your attachment back to childhood scars, which gives this neat, tidy, self-contained story for really complex behaviors.
Yeah, simplifies everything. And the classic, use perspective. Just radically reframe any negative reality until it doesn't feel bad anymore.
These are the action steps. They keep the consumer busy, focused inward, constantly working on themselves.
All right, I want to pause here. We've mapped out this hierarchy, the axioms, the hooks, the mechanisms, which means we can actually put a name to the underlying logic, the transactional engine driving this. We're calling it the secular prosperity gospel.
Now, hold on. Calling it the prosperity gospel,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty harsh. Isn't that usually associated with, televangelists and megachurches?
It is, traditionally.
So couldn't someone argue this is just positive thinking, maybe rebranded for a more modern, secular,
Yeah.
spiritual, but not religious audience? Where's the key difference that makes it deserve that, cynical label?
That's a fair challenge.
Yeah.
The crucial difference, we argue, is the transactional demand.
Correct.
The traditional prosperity gospel says, faith in God, demonstrated often through tithing or donations, leads to material rewards from God.
Right. Give to get.
The secular version, it completely replaces faith in God with achieving the correct internal energetic state, detachment, high vibration, whatever the term is.
Ah, I see. So the underlying contract is basically identical.
Exactly. Your internal state management, which you often achieve through buying courses, coaching, books, that becomes the sole currency.
It's the means to manifesting your desired outcomes. Money, love, career success, you name it. It's basically spiritual capitalism.
You're rebranding cosmic lobbying. You're not just thinking positively, hoping for the best.
No. You are actively performing an emotional action, this act of detaching, specifically because you believe it forces the universe, or whatever, to give you what you want.
You're trying to manipulate the cosmic mechanics through a kind of manufactured indifference.
Wow. Okay. That realization flows directly into phase 2, doesn't it? Which we're calling contextual annihilation.
Yes. This is where we look at the fraudulent ancestry of these ideas.
Because this commercial derivative, it absolutely relies on the perceived weight and wisdom of ancient traditions like Stoicism and Buddhism.
But it fundamentally alters or just completely annihilates the original meaning and context. This is where we need that cross-contextual analysis.
And the level of, frankly, cultural theft is pretty staggering when you look closely. Let's take Stoicism first.
Okay.
Authentic Stoicism, the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius Epictetus,
Yeah.
it was this comprehensive system. It aimed for eudaimonia.
Which is often translated as what? Human flourishing, living a good life.
Exactly. And you achieve that through rigorous practice of virtue, justice, courage, temperance, wisdom, and through rationally accepting what is genuinely outside your control.
It was about building inner character, an unshakable core. It wasn't really about changing the outside world to suit your preferences.
But this modern derivative, it's like it performs surgery. It surgically removed that ethical core, the focus on virtue.
And replaced it with what? Expediency?
Pretty much. It's no longer about being virtuous or even truly rationally accepting things. It's repackaged as just a behavioral technique.
A technique for what?
For manipulating external outcomes, by managing your internal state, correcting your vibration.
So the key difference is the goal. The original Stoics sought wisdom. Wisdom was the reward in itself, even if they faced hardship, poverty, illness.
Right. while the modern derivative seeks energetic vibration correction, specifically to game the external system and, let's be honest, avoid discomfort.
Wisdom is hard work, though. It demands a lifetime commitment, ethical consistency, facing painful truth sometimes.
Whereas vibration correction, well, that sounds easier, doesn't it? Consume some content, buy a course, immediate results promised.
That contrast is absolutely critical to understanding why this sells so well. It's the promise of a shortcut.
And the manipulation gets even more, well, profound when we look at the Buddhist concepts they claim to borrow from.
Right, because this commercial non-attachment talk completely ignores, or maybe just doesn't understand, the philosophical cornerstone of actual Buddhist practice.
Which is?
An attachment, the understanding of non-self.
Brahma permanence.
Exactly. In Buddhism, non-attachment isn't some technique you do to manifest a new car or snag a better partner. That's missing the entire point. So what is it in that context?
It's a realization. Often a gradual, sometimes painful, deep insight that arises from seeing clearly that there's no permanent, fixed, individual self to attach to things in the first place. You detach not as a strategy, but because you see that the things you are attached to, including your sense of self, the things you desire are fundamentally impermanent, interconnected, and lack inherent independent existence. It's an ontological insight. It's about the nature of reality itself.
Okay, that's radically different.
Completely. Whereas the derivative sells it as a quick behavioral hack, a tool designed for immediate results.
And results that often reinforce the ego, ironically.
Precisely. You're taught to detach from wanting a specific outcome so that the persistent sense of I can manifest a better outcome, which then strengthens the ego's feeling of power and control.
Well,
look what I manifested.
And that right there, that's the core contradiction we absolutely have to flag for you, the listener.
Yeah.
The system sells a spiritual shortcut, promising to transcend the ego. Yet the entire mechanism, the intense focus on my vibration, my manifestation, my feeling of inner peace, it only feeds and strengthens the very ego structure it claims it's dismantling.
You end up becoming deeply, almost narcissistically, attached to the idea of being non-attached.
It is a perfect trap. And the consequences of this commercial hijacking, they ripple outwards. They're not just personal or philosophical, they're deeply political.
Right. We have to talk about spiritualized passivity.
This is where the critical theory lens becomes essential for this deep dive. Traditional social analysis looks at structures, right?
Economic systems, political systems, social inequalities.
Exactly. And it sees that these systems often create suffering, which implies that the solution requires collective action, systemic change.
But this individualized spiritual model does something very different. It takes all suffering, regardless of its source,
and pathologizes it as a purely personal failing, a problem of incorrect thinking or feeling, an attachment.
So if you're angry about wage stagnation, or you're distressed about political corruption, or worried about climate change,
according to this model, you're simply attached to an outcome you haven't manifested correctly, or you have a low vibration. Your feelings are the problem, not the situation.
And the moment you label legitimate discontent, anger about injustice, fear about the future as a personal spiritual failure,
the system becomes incredibly useful for maintaining the status quo, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It leads to profound depoliticization.
How so?
Well, the spiritually optimized individual is just too busy managing their internal state. They're monitoring their thoughts, policing their feelings, trying to raise their frequency.
They don't have the time or the mental energy left to actually challenge the external structures causing the problems in the first place.
Exactly. If your poverty is supposedly caused by your low vibration, why would you join a union or demand political change?
You just need to buy a better coaching package, right?
Yeah.
Work on your manifesting skills.
It's the perfect recipe for societal acquiescence. If the world feels like it's burning down and you feel the heat, the pain.
The influencer tells you your pain is just an attachment to the outcome of not burning.
Right. You need to work on achieving internal acceptance of the fire instead of, grabbing a bucket or organizing the neighborhood.
It creates compliant citizens, which leads us directly into phase 3, the deception taxonomy.
Okay. We've identified 5 primary patterns here. These show exactly how this system channels your behavior, keeps you hooked, and ultimately benefits the sellers and potentially existing power structures.
Let's break them down. Pattern number 1. The covert transaction. This is about hiding the actual exchange that's happening.
Making it look like it's all about freedom and letting go when something else is going on underneath.
The core mechanism here is the package deal fallacy. Letting go is marketed as pure liberation, total freedom.
But functionally, it operates as a really sophisticated control strategy. You're not actually letting go for the sake of freedom itself.
No, you're performing the act of detachment specifically so that the universe or God or source or whatever abstract power is invoked
Is essentially compelled by cosmic law to give you something better in return, the thing you really wanted all along, or maybe something even grander.
It's not transcendence, it's emotional leverage. You're trying to game the system.
Historically, you can see parallels here with how the concept of karma got degraded in some contexts. An ethical principle of cause and effect reduced to a cosmic vending machine.
Put in good vibes, detachment, get out material rewards, manifestation.
And the impact on the individual is profound. It basically enslaves you to this constant, exhausting, and ultimately impossible task of monitoring your own internal state.
You're always policing your feelings. Am I attached? Am I feeling needy? Oh no, I slipped up.
Before the universe notices and punishes you by withholding your desires.
That constant monitoring sounds absolutely exhausting. Which brings us to pattern number 2, pathologization of desire. This is how the system systematically disarms your natural warning systems.
Explain that. How does it pathologize desire? It takes completely legitimate human desires, preferences, even these things like your gut feelings, your need for safety, your instinct to run from danger, your ambition for a better life.
And it reframes all of them as unhealthy, problematic attachments that you need to purge, to get rid of.
So you must detach from needing a partner who treats you well, or detach from wanting fair pay for your work.
Essentially, yes. Those strong feelings, those desires, are framed as the source of your suffering, rather than legitimate signals about your environment or needs.
And the impact of that, it's potentially devastating for the listener, for you. It teaches you to sever your connection to your own vital, intuitive warnings.
So if you feel like you should demand that pay raise because you're being undervalued,
your coach might tell you that's just a low-vibration attachment to money. It's your issue, not the unfair pay.
Or if you feel deeply uncomfortable around a manipulative person,
your desire to set a boundary gets labeled an attachment to control. Again, the problem is framed as being inside you.
You're basically trained to mistrust your own authentic needs, feelings, and judgments, which of course makes you incredibly vulnerable.
Vulnerable to what?
To exploitation, to unhealthy relationships, to staying in bad situations, to accepting unfair hierarchies, because your internal alarm system has been effectively disabled.
You see this exact pattern play out in high control groups, in cults, don't you?
Absolutely. Any kind of dissent, any questioning, any natural emotional response that challenges the group's narrative or the leader's authority.
It gets immediately relabeled as your personal failing, your lack of faith, your insufficient spiritual development.
Okay, pattern number 3. This one feels crucial for the business model. Bait and switch happiness. This creates the loop of self-blame that keeps people coming back.
How does the bait and switch work here?
The system presents you with this stark, binary, and ultimately false choice. Option A, you are attached, and therefore you will suffer. That's a given. Option B, you are happy, but your happiness is entirely conditional. It depends completely on you executing the non-attachment technique flawlessly, all day, every day.
So happiness isn't allowed to be just a natural state or a byproduct of living a meaningful life.
Nope. In this model, happiness is contingent on perfect technique execution. It's something you achieve through the method.
And the consequence of setting it up that way, it creates a debilitating double bind.
Explain the double bind.
If the technique inevitably fails because, let's face it, life happens, manifestations don't always materialize, you still feel anxiety or grief or frustration sometimes.
The system has already built in the perfect excuse, and it points right back at you.
The fault isn't with the technique or the unrealistic promise.
Yeah.
The fault is yours.
Right. I just wasn't detached enough. I must have had some hidden attachment. My vibration wasn't high enough. I didn't believe hard enough.
It sounds like the cruel absurdity of telling someone with clinical depression to just choose joy or think positive. It ignores reality.
Exactly. And it ensures the system's profitability. Because the consumer is locked into this cycle, they believe they perpetually need more.
More coaching, more advanced techniques, more books, more products, all to fix their own perceived failure in performing the technique.
They become financially attached to buying the cure for attachment. The irony is stark.
Okay, pattern 4. We touched on this earlier, the political dimension. Spiritualized passivity.
Right. This is where the philosophy gets weaponized, consciously or unconsciously, to uphold existing systems.
The core mechanism here involves taking a potentially valuable concept, genuine, hard-won, rational acceptance of things you truly cannot change.
Like the Stoics talked about.
Exactly. Taking that and transforming it into something else entirely. A consumer's wholesale acquiescence, just passively accepting existing power structures, unfair conditions, injustices.
So if you're systematically told that everything that happens is either part of some perfect divine plan, or maybe it's just a direct reflection of your own internal frequency,
Then actively resisting becomes spiritually incorrect, doesn't it? Pushing back against unfair systems means you're attached or low vibration.
it's resistance neutralization. The ideology cleverly co-opts the language of freedom and liberation, let go and be free.
But uses it to provide a spiritual justification for accepting things like economic inequality, terrible leadership, social problems, environmental decay.
You can see how this serves certain interests. It's a modern twist on much older justifications for power structures.
Like what?
Echoes of things like the divine right of kings or rigid caste systems where your place in the hierarchy, your suffering, was explained away by spiritual decree. It was God's will or your karma from a past life.
And today, the person struggling is told their suffering is purely because they're personally attached to wanting comfort or fairness or a specific external outcome.
Which effectively neutralizes any impulse towards collective action, towards demanding political reform or economic justice. Why bother if the problem is just your internal state?
Okay, that's heavy. And it leads to the final pattern in our taxonomy, the ultimate paradox. Number 5, commodified enlightenment.
This is where the mask really comes off. The mechanism is simple. Liberation itself, enlightenment, peace, whatever you call it.
It's explicitly framed, packaged, and sold as just another consumer product, available for purchase in the capitalist marketplace.
The cure for attachment is something you have to acquire. You buy it, and maybe you need upgrades later.
And if you follow the money, if you map the beneficiaries, the commercial infrastructure becomes crystal clear.
Lay it out. What does that pipeline typically look like?
It's often a startlingly effective funnel. It usually starts with free content, YouTube videos, blog posts, social media that establishes the influencer's authority, their spiritual credentials.
Builds trust, gets eyeballs.
Exactly. Then it quickly moves to affiliate marketing. Promoting sponsored products could be anything. VPNs, specific clothing brands, supplements, specialties, things vaguely associated with the lifestyle.
Okay, the entry-level monetization.
Then you get the mid-tier offerings. Books, e-guides, maybe curated resource lists, maybe lower-priced digital courses.
Things people pay for directly.
Right. But the real money, the high-ticket items, are usually at the top of that funnel.
What's up there?
This is where you see the expensive, high-touch coaching programs, one-on-one sessions, intensive workshops or retreats, often costing thousands.
And sometimes physical products, too.
Oh yeah, often specialized, branded merchandise. Things like specific crystals, high-vibration jewelry, proprietary tools, all marketed as essential aids for achieving higher consciousness or vibrational alignment. Things you need to buy to accelerate your progress.
It sounds exactly like the medieval Catholic Church selling indulgences.
It's the modern equivalent, perfectly adapted. You're buying the tools, the techniques, the access you supposedly need to achieve the correct internal state, faster, easier, with less personal effort. Just pay the fee.
And the ultimate impact, the goal of this whole taxonomy, is achieved right there. The consumer becomes deeply, financially, and psychologically attached to the very system, the very influencer brand, that is selling them the supposed cure for attachment.
It's a perfectly closed loop of consumption and dependency.
Okay. That deconstruction of the 5 patterns brings us logically to phase 4, structural vulnerabilities and cognitive liberation. We need to synthesize this. Let's quickly review the inescapable logical flaws we found baked into this architecture.
Right. The core contradictions that just don't hold up under scrutiny. There were 3 big ones.
First, transactional non-attachment. The fundamental absurdity that the system requires you to perform an act of profound letting go as a direct strategy for getting what you want.
The premise eats itself.
Yeah.
Letting go to gain. It's logically incoherent.
Second, manipulative acceptance, where acceptance isn't presented as a rational way to deal with reality, but as a subtle technique intended to manipulate external outcomes.
Like pretending to accept failure, but only because you secretly hope your performance of detachment will be rewarded with success later. It's like a cosmic temper tantrum disguised as spiritual maturity.
And third, the one we keep coming back to, ego-reinforcing enlightenment.
Yeah. The fact that the specific techniques being sold, the constant self-watching, the intense focus on my vibration, my manifesting success, my personal feeling of peace,
Are actually designed to hyper-focus, amplify, and strengthen the very ego structure, the sense of I that the philosophy claims it's trying to transcend or dismantle.
it builds a very specific, often quite narcissistic spiritual identity around being the person who is successfully non-attached.
And it's crucial to understand this isn't just sloppy thinking. This logical loop isn't an accident. It's the engine of the psychological hook and dependency model.
The business model that the commercial infrastructure relies on. Our sources showed a really clear, predictable three-step cycle here, designed for repeat business.
Okay, lay out the cycle. Step 1.
Create the problem. First, you have to convince the consumer that their natural human tendency to care, to invest emotionally, is actually the root cause of all their suffering. Pathologize attachment itself.
Step 2.
Sell the solution. Package the non-attachment technique, whatever specific flavor is being offered, as the one true path to peace, happiness, and getting all the external rewards you desire. Sell it via the book, the course, the coaching.
And step 3, this is the key to the ongoing revenue stream. Right?
Absolutely. Step 3, maintain dependency. Because the core technique relies on this inherently flawed, often impossible promise, manipulating external reality solely through internal states. It will inevitably seem to fail sometime.
Life intervenes. Things don't go as planned.
Right. And when the consumer feels guilt, or anxiety returns, or disappointment hits because the manifestation didn't happen, they've already been programmed to blame themselves.
I failed. I wasn't detached enough. I need more help.
Exactly. So they immediately return to the source, the influencer, the coach, the brand, seeking more advanced techniques, more products, more expert guidance to fix their own perceived inadequacy.
They get trapped on this perpetual spiritual treadmill, financially locked in by the self-doubt the system itself generated.
And the ultimate impact of creating millions of people stuck in that dependency loop, that feeds into the broader sociopolitical consequences that affect everyone, not just the direct consumers.
We gave this a name earlier, acquiescence engineering.
Right. The argument is that the entire system, whether intentionally designed this way or not, functions to engineer passive acceptance of the way things are, the status quo.
Because if your poverty is your vibrational fault, if your anxiety about the state of the world is just your attachment to control,
then you have no rational basis, no spiritual permission to challenge the external circumstances or the people and systems benefiting from them.
And on a personal level, this creates profound self-alienation. The ideology systematically teaches you, the consumer, to distrust your most vital, natural, core emotions and desires, your intuition, your anger, your longing for justice.
You end up creating this intense internal conflict, a war inside yourself between your authentic experience, the reality that you do care deeply, you are angry about injustice, you do desire things,
and the correct spiritual state that the system, the influencer, has prescribed for you.
It disconnects you from your own inner guidance system, your own will, your own energy for taking action in the world.
But look, the goal of the deconstruction deep dive isn't just to tear things down. It's always about liberation. We don't just break the machine. We want to offer the counter-programming.
Right. We need to propose the necessary mindset shift, what we're calling the cognitive liberation framework.
We need to reclaim the very human elements that this ideology took, pathologized, and tried to sell back to us in a distorted form. Let's start with desire.
Okay. Instead of seeing desire as a flaw, as pathological attachment,
we must reclaim desire as the essential, fundamental engine of will. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Desire is what drives innovation and fuels art. It demands justice. It's the energy behind wanting things to be better, for ourselves and for others. It's the fuel for action.
Okay, what's next? Disappointment.
We have to stop seeing disappointment as proof of spiritual failure, proof that we were too attached.
Instead,
we need to reframe disappointment as simply evidence of caring. If you feel disappointed, it means you invested emotionally. You hoped for something. You valued something or someone outside yourself.
That capacity for emotional vulnerability for investment, that's deeply human. It's what gives life meaning and texture. It is absolutely not a flaw to be eradicated.
Okay. Desire, disappointment. What's the third element to reclaim?
Anger. Specifically, legitimate, righteous anger.
The kind this system dismisses as just low vibration or lack of acceptance.
Exactly. We need to legitimize that righteous anger as an essential, ethical, necessary response to witnessing or experiencing injustice.
Anger isn't just negativity. It's a powerful diagnostic tool. It signals that a boundary has been crossed, that harm is being done, that systems are failing people.
To dismiss all anger as spiritually incorrect is to basically dismiss crucial evidence about the state of the world and our place in it.
So the core principle of this liberation framework,
It's about embracing the inherent paradox of being human, learning to want things fully, deeply, investing your whole self in outcomes you care about.
while simultaneously accepting the reality of uncertainty, constraints, setbacks, things outside your control.
Crucially, without needing to spiritualize either position into a transactional technique, you don't need a guru to tell you why you didn't get the job.
You just accept the reality of the setback, acknowledge any pain or disappointment without judgment.
And then, from a place of clarity, determine your next rational, ethical, effective action based on reality, not on managing cosmic frequencies.
Okay, that's the alternative framework. But how do we take this specific deconstruction of non-attachment and make it useful more broadly? We need a transferable analysis protocol.
Exactly. How can you, the listener, apply this critical methodology to the constant stream of other ideas and narratives you encounter?
Because this framework, this way of dissecting ideas, it isn't just limited to New Age influencers talking about non-attachment. You can use it everywhere.
Give us some examples. Where else could we apply this?
Well, think about the explosion of corporate mindfulness programs. You see them everywhere now.
Sure. Meditation apps provided by HR, resilience training.
Right. Ask the critical questions. Are these genuinely designed to reduce employee stress and improve well-being? Or could they function as a form of acquiescence engineering?
Meaning?
Are they intended, perhaps subtly, to make employees better able to cope with and passively accept increasingly demanding workloads, stagnant wages, fewer resources, maybe even toxic management, without complaining or pushing back? Just be mindful of the stress.
That's a chilling application. What else?
Look at the broader wellness industry, even outside explicitly spiritual claims. The narratives around health, diet, fitness. Is the solution being sold really about achieving robust, sustainable health? Or does it sometimes function as a new, incredibly demanding form of constant self-monitoring and consumption?
Perpetuating dependency on specialized supplements, expensive clean foods, personalized genetic testing, endless tracking.
Exactly. Keeping you perpetually feeling like you need the next product, the next test, the next guru's advice to be truly well.
We could also apply this to political spiritual rhetoric, couldn't we?
Absolutely. When political movements or leaders use vague spiritual language, talking about higher purpose or manifest destiny or providence.
To justify specific economic policies, social agendas, even military actions, we need to ask what transaction is being implied, what passivity is being engineered.
And maybe one of the most pervasive areas today, technological solutionism.
The belief that technology will fix everything.
Right. The narrative that every complex human problem, social inequality, political polarization, climate change, mental health crises, can ultimately be solved if we just find the perfect algorithm, the perfect app, the perfect data set.
Instead of facing the messy, difficult work of human compromise, ethical debate, political negotiation, systemic change, it's another form of bypass.
Precisely. It promises a clean technical fix, often benefiting tech companies, while avoiding the harder structural questions.
Okay. So to wrap this up, let's give you, the listener, the final toolkit, the key detection heuristics. Quick checks you can run instantly to spot these kinds of manipulative narratives.
4 key tests. First, the transaction tests.
Ask yourself, is the promised outcome, enlightenment, peace, success, health, whatever, contingent on specific measurable purchases? Financial investments, adherence to behaviors that primarily enrich the seller or guru.
If there's a clear exchange required for the liberation, it's not liberation, it's commerce. Follow the transaction.
Second, the paradox checks.
Does the stated solution logically contradict the stated philosophy?
Like our core example. If the goal is detachment, but the technique requires you to become intensely attached to monitoring your internal state, or obsessively focused on manifesting a specific outcome.
That's a major internal contradiction. A huge logical red flag waving right there.
Third, and maybe the most powerful, beneficiary mapping.
Always ask the cui bono question. Who profits? Who benefits financially, politically, or socially if this idea becomes widely adopted?
Follow the money. Follow the power structures. Who gains when the population is encouraged to look inward at their vibrations instead of outward at systemic issues?
That often reveals the underlying agenda very quickly.
And finally, number 4, the historical comparison.
Ask yourself, What older, perhaps discredited patterns does this shiny new concept seem to replicate?
If it feels intellectually or structurally similar to the medieval church selling indulgences, or to past spiritual justifications for slavery or poverty or rigid social hierarchies.
That's probably because the underlying control mechanism, the psychological manipulation, is fundamentally the same, just wearing modern clothes. History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. What is the one spiritual concept you've been sold that you're now ready to put on the chopping block after hearing this episode?
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative, deconstruct the dogma, see the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical.